You're about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, welcome back to the Dr. Daliah Show. 1-877-Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOCDALI. So I really don't like this vilification of pharmacies and going after the pharmacies. And apparently Walgreens has had to pay up to $350 million in this latest settlement regarding the opioid crisis, Walgreens. Now, this isn't the first time a pharmacy has been sued over the opioid epidemic, but this is what has happened and transpired in this latest case. So apparently there were some whistleblowers in Walgreens alleging that Walgreens was being, the pharmacists and the staff were being pressured to fill prescriptions that might not have been quote unquote legal prescriptions. And the Justice Department found them guilty to the tune of close to $350 million. They have to pay $300 million at least to the government and will owe $50 million if the company is later sold, merged, or transferred before 2032, totaling $350 million. Now, the government's complaint was filed in January in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Illinois. It alleges that Walgreens knowingly filled millions of illegal prescriptions for controlled substances between August 2012 and March 2023. These included prescriptions for excessive opioids and prescriptions filled significantly early. So when I hear illegal, to me, an illegal prescription is something that was doctored. I hate that. By the way, where did they get that term doctored? It's all doctored up. Okay, to me, doctored is pretty ethical, but yeah, let's use a different term where it's a fake prescription, fake piece of paper, fake electronic entry by a non-doctor, not verified. That's not what all these prescriptions were. In fact, Walgreens says we strongly disagree with the government's legal theory and admit no liability. This resolution allows us to close all opioid-related litigation with federal, state, and local governments and provides us with favorable terms from a casual perspective while we focus on our turnaround strategy. Now, their turnaround strategy includes closing 1,200 stores around the country last October. As we know, Rite Aid filed for bankruptcy at the end of 2023. I'm not sure what's happening with CVS and other pharmacies, but the complaint says, according to NPR, that Walgreens pharmacists filled these prescriptions despite clear red flags, that the prescriptions were highly likely to be invalid, and the company pressured its pharmacists to fill them quickly. The government alleges Walgreens compliance officials ignored substantial evidence that its stores were filling unlawful prescriptions and withheld important information on opioid prescribers from its pharmacists. Now, what was the biggest, piece to this was they said Walgreens then allegedly sought payment for many of the invalid prescriptions through Medicare and other federal healthcare programs in violation of the False Claims Act. So if a pharmacist is filling a prescription and then they're charging insurance and they aren't, thinking it's an illegal prescription because their job is to fill a prescription from a doctor's office, then of course they're going to bill an insurance company. Of course they're going to bill Medicare. I'm a little worried that some people are going to be accused of illegal acts when it wasn't illegal. Now, mind you, if there is a handwritten, obvious fabrication of a prescription, that shouldn't have gotten filled. That should be a slam dunk. If you have an electronic software and it's a new doctor that isn't verified, because see, what I don't understand is every time I call in a prescription to Walgreens or CVS, if it is controlled substances, they want my DEA. They verify my address. They always verify who you are. They've been doing that for years. I've been practicing over 20 years. And so I'm not entirely sure But they're not describing a ring where there was somebody that infiltrated and was making money on the side. And so the concern I have with this as a doctor is if pharmacies are going to get sued or now paying millions of dollars because they filled a narcotic prescription, then it's only a matter of time that they're going to go after every medical center, every doctor, every nurse. This has been going on for years. The low-hanging fruit is the medical community and the pharmaceutical community. When the drugs are pouring into this country, when there's cartel, we had previous border issues. Now, mind you, there are some idiot individuals out there and some idiot medical providers that are probably running little opioid prescription rings. Who knows? But to go after the pharmacy, because I tell you, if a pharmacy is given a prescription and they don't fill it and they go, nah, I don't feel like it, they get closed down. They have laws that they have to follow. A pharmacist can't say, you know what, I'm going to pass on this one. They can't do that. So you're telling them that the onus is on them to do all the background checks on everything they fill. Well, okay, if that's the new law, then I guess that's a new law. But if that wasn't what was, I think this case dates back years. But if that's not what they were required to do, where they had to actually vet every single piece of paper, every single electronic software, then now that changes everything. Well, so what happens to you? How does this affect you? Well, one, now your prices are going to go up. There are going to be fees. Even if your insurance is only going to pay X amount, your wait time is going to be longer. If these pharmacists have to now vet every single prescription thoroughly, it also means you're not going to get your pain medication quickly. If you're in pain, you think you're going to be able to stand and then wait around and get your prescription? No, it's going to take a long time because they are going to have to prove and have a paper trail that they did vetting on each and every prescription. Not to mention, the more of these pharmacies are closed, the more it affects you and your access to medications. So I'm not a fan of going after the pharmacies. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, don't go away. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to totalwellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. totalwellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, the Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So the Supreme Court is going to be hearing oral arguments today in Mahmoud versus Taylor. This is a case that's looking at parental rights and religious freedom in public education. Now, at issue, according to Fox News, is whether a Maryland school district violated the First Amendment by requiring elementary school students to engage with LGBTQ AI plus storybooks that included topics about gender transitions and same-sex relationships without allowing parents the opportunity to opt out. They say the policy was implemented to disrupt, quote, cis norm activity and to promote inclusivity, according to Supreme Court documents. Initially, the school allowed parents to opt their children out of these lessons, but later the school reversed its decision, eliminating the opt-out option and not notifying parents when such content was being taught. Now, parents supported by religious freedom organizations argue that this policy infringes upon the First Amendment rights by compelling their students to engage in instruction that contradicts their religious beliefs. The Fourth Circuit Court, a federal appeals court, ruled last year that there was no violation of religious exercise rights, stating that the policy did not force parents to change their religious beliefs or conduct, and that parents could still teach their children outside of school. So Thomas More Society attorney Michael McHale told Fox News Digital in a previous interview that while there is an opt-out statute in state law, the school initially abided by it, but then the school decided to yank the opt-out exception, so to speak, and it really triggered the issue of whether the Constitution requires an opt-out in that circumstance. He said for the Fourth Circuit to say there was no religious burden, it seems radical, and given how pressing that issue of school curriculum on sexual orientation, gender identity is, I think it raises an issue worth the Supreme Court's attention. So, this is where I'm just kind of confused. Okay, I support LGBTQ AI plus rights. I just don't understand why school children have that as a part of their curriculum. These children need to learn math, reading, history, and I don't understand why we keep bringing up societal issues in school. Schools have a job to make sure that these kids are educated and can later get jobs, can later support themselves. And I'm just confused as to, if you are going to teach things to help kids in today's society, then why aren't they learning self-defense? Why aren't they learning how to fish, how to hunt, how to garden? Yeah, I told you if the way I think school needs to be, and I'm sorry if I'm being redundant, is the mornings should be short, concrete classes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes top. None of this sitting there for an hour, where they get the math, they get the reading, they get the science, all of that in the morning. Then the afternoon is your practical learning. But this practical learning based on whether you're third grade, fifth grade, 11th grade, well, actually up to 10th grade, will be the trades, will be medicine, law, education, business, farming, first aid. And where kids, number one, will all be, CPR trained. They'll all be able to defend themselves with whether it's Taekwondo or self-defense or Krav Maga. They'll all know how to fish, hunt, desert survival, practical things, and exposure to all the trades and as many of the fields as you can. So by the time sophomore year is finished, they will have an idea of what they want to do in life. High school ends at the end of sophomore year. Then age 17 and 18 is where they get their associate's degree or their trade certification while still within the halls of the high school. And there's your free college. The kids graduate at the age of 18 with an associate's degree, every single one of them, or a trade certificate, whether they wanted electricity, electricians, plumbing, whatever. But everybody graduates at the age of 18, ready to go out into the world. Now, how we have it right now in school is kids are there all day long, and they're like, well, why don't we read them stories? And let's teach them books, and let's look at this. And it's, if you're really running out of things to teach these kids, restructure the day. By the way, none of this 3-4 months off summer break. Kids should be learning year round. You could widen Christmas break, winter break, make that, 4 weeks. You could give 4 weeks off in the summer. But none of this where they go for months without school. Kids need to learn. And sex ed, when I went to school, parents had to opt in. Now, I understand that many parents don't talk about issues with their kids. My parents would not talk about sex at all. I was very grateful they allowed me to have that training in school, even though it was really limited. But I got in trouble asking them any questions. I got hit. I remember my dad throwing a shoe at me. I couldn't ask any questions. So if it wasn't for school or my friends, I wouldn't have known anything. So I get how many teachers feel they can't rely on the parents. But they're still the parents. And they should have a chance to opt in and opt out. And so if they are not given a chance and kids are being infused with something that's not necessarily academic, that might not be a part. And mind you, I have LGBTQAI plus family members. They're not the ones asking for third graders to be exposed to this. They just don't want the stigma that we used to have in society, and they want to be able to live their life, in monogamous relationships and be a part of society without being bullied, hurt, attacked. But does that really require us infusing, and incorporating that into curriculum at the lower grade levels? I don't think so. And in terms of opting in and opting out, I have said this, what schools need to do. Parents are kind of naive as to what kids are doing. And the average parent has no idea that these middle schoolers are having sex or engaged in sex acts. They don't know what's going on with the vaping and the fentanyl and the drugs to the degrees that I know we physicians or law enforcement may know. So what schools need to do is every quarter or every semester meet with the parents. And I'm not saying one-on-one. It could be, all right, parent assembly. We are going to make you aware of things that these fifth graders are doing, or fourth graders are doing, or third graders are doing. Do you want instruction on that? Do you want us to talk about fentanyl risks? Do you want us to talk about rape? Do you want us to talk about not drinking, something that when somebody gives you another cup? Do you want us to talk about trafficking? These are the things that are affecting our young kids. If you want us to talk about that, we have a curriculum in class where we are going to teach kids about that. Teach kids about dangers of using certain objects with masturbation, other sexual topics. This is the curriculum we are going to teach the kids. Would you like to opt in or opt out? And I think engaging the parents is going to be the answer to this. The idea that this is going to be behind the parents' back makes no sense. If a school wants to teach something above and beyond the basic curriculum, just like electives, I couldn't do anything at school unless my parents signed that I could take those electives. I couldn't do shop. Well, they didn't let girls in shop. I had to take home ec. I wanted to do shop. But still, you had to have your parents sign permission. You had to have permission slips. But all of a sudden now there's certain curriculum where, you don't need the parents to sign. But if you're really worried that parents are in the dark And that these kids are hurting themselves because the parents aren't talking about how this one kid used an Apple iPhone charger to try to pleasure himself and ripped his urethra. If you're worried the parents aren't bringing those up, then you meet with the parents twice a year. You can do it every semester or every quarter and say, look, these are the latest issues that are affecting the kids. And this is what these kids need to be taught. Do you want to teach them in your home or do you want us to? Here's a permission slip, opt in or opt out. So it'll be interesting to see what SCOTUS says. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So the student accused of shooting 2 people dead at Florida State University last week had a condition that some people feel might have contributed to his murderous acts. His name was Phoenix Ickner, 20 years old, and we are being told, according to CNN and Daily Mail, that he had come off prescription medication at the time of the shooting rampage. He was identified by police as the suspect responsibly for fatally gunning down 2 people and injuring 6 others last week in Tallahassee. The FSU student opened fire using his stepmom's handgun. His stepmom is a sheriff's deputy. Now, police are still yet to establish a motive. It's too early to state. Yet, they say, but he began firing at random, appeared to not have any connection to the victims. Armark Collegiate Hospitality Regional Vice President Tiru Chaba and FSU Dining Coordinator Robert Morales were the ones who were identified as the 2 fatalities. The suspect was also injured during the shooting, taken to the hospital. Currently, he has significant but not life-threatening injuries. Now, he invoked his right to remain silent, is expected to face several charges up to first-degree murder. Once he's discharged from the hospital, he's going to be taken to a detention center. They say his stepmom is Leon County Sheriff's Deputy Jessica Eckner, and that he had access to one of her weapons, and that was one of the weapons that was found at the scene. Just horrible. Now, they say that his just some more details. Leon County Sheriff McNeil said at the press conference that the gunman was a member of the department's youth setup and was involved in training programs, and described him as steeped in the Leon County Sheriff's Office family. Tallahassee Police Chief Lawrence Revel said the gun was previously used by his mother for law enforcement, but was her private handgun at the time of her shooting, because deputies are allowed to purchase the handgun they used prior. Now, he's been alleged to have white supremacist beliefs, very alt-right rhetoric they're reporting on a social media. And they say that he had a emotional dysregulation diagnosis. Now, emotional dysregulation is a term that is being used for somebody that struggles to, I guess, regulate their emotions. And symptoms of that could be they have short tempers. They may feel shame. They may try to control their symptoms with alcohol, with drugs. They may hurt themselves. They may have anxiety. And so medications to address this would be for regulation, mood disorders, mood stabilizers, also some very intensive therapy. Now, emotional dysregulation can be a part of, I know some people say, oh, well, I think he had autism or ADHD, or I don't know all his diagnoses. But if somebody does have impulsivity, there's a chance that there could be some overlap. Not everybody with attention deficit disorder or some hyperactivity who does maybe some impulsive actions doesn't necessarily, they can't regulate their emotions. But this is considered a separate entity. But yes, they can overlap. And so, we have individuals that are walking this planet, right, that might not be able to control themselves and turn into mass murderers. And that's what's frightening, especially when they are a part of a family and loved by parents and loved by community members. This is pretty frightening. And I have seen domestic abuse. I've seen, child abuse. People who at one moment may love that family member and then another moment wants to hurt them. And emotional dysregulation is going to be a term you're going to start to hear more and more often. Having short fuses, irritability, being overexcited, feeling like you have to walk on eggshells around them. Now, some people could say, well, sometimes we see that with people with mania. Sometimes we see that with people with anxiety or depression or bipolar. Again, these all can overlap, but it doesn't mean that not everybody has issues regulating their emotions. But how do you identify, treat as a society? If you don't know if somebody's going to lose it, then how do you approach him? How do you live with them? I mean, you could say that, every time we hear of a family member kill another family member or a student decide to kill another student, obviously they didn't regulate their emotions well or they had mental illness. And I think we have more individuals out there that will snap. Now, medications can control it, but they have to be on their medications. If they go off their medications, if they say, "Tell with it, I'm done," they're going to rebound. And as a family member, that's scary. As a community member, as a classmate, that's pretty scary. And I hate saying we have to assume, that they're all around us. But when you watch the video of him in broad daylight, just walking across campus and then starting to shoot, that's kind of what's happening. And that's why I think, we might not be able to cure everybody. We might not be able to identify. We might not be able to stop the planning. But I think in order for us not to be victims and get caught up, we have to be aware. We can't be scared. We can't be living our life in fear. But whether you're in New Orleans on New Year's getting, run down by a car, or whether you're, in a church study class and somebody walking in and, I think we have to be able to, allow us to get trained, protected, and be aware. Campuses are some of the most dangerous, places because there's so many access points. And they're so large that it's hard to have that type of security. I worked at a school which people criticized as being very ugly, hardly any windows, and you feel completely locked in. However, they were able to manage security better. I love big, beautiful campuses. I love walking around campuses. I think it's, oh my gosh, UCLA, wow. Harvard, wow. These campuses are gorgeous. Even UNLV, I love walking around UNLV campuses. But as you saw, UNLV last year had a shooting. This is, we live in a world where we have many individuals who have mental illness and they're getting harder to find. We used to be able to pick up on them because they had to go to the doctor. Their parents had to drag them in to get physicals, to get vaccines, now there's kids not going to school. They tell their parents, I'm not going to school. So the parents are like, fine, we'll homeschool you. You'll stay home. And nobody else but their parents sees them, can evaluate them. And even physicians, for the 10 minutes, if a physician even gives the family that, are they really going to pick up on that child being murderous and having homicidal ideation? Do we have to have everybody go through psychological evaluations? I don't like that idea because, I think everybody's going to be found to have something. And then we just don't have enough counselors. But we're going to have to come up with a better way than just say, well, that person's a little weird. That person's grumpy. Let's just stay away. And that's what we do. We're like, well, we're just going to stay away from that kid. Or we're going to stay away from that person. But something makes them snap. And when they snap, is it their food? Is it their nutrition? People say, well, it's the video games. No, because, the average person can play video games and not snap. But if you have mental illness, who knows? Maybe they are, having under the delusion of trying to recreate a scene in the video game. But we need to figure this out and figure it out fast. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So this is getting ridiculous. Harvard is actually suing the Trump administration over wanting to cut funding to them. They have billions of dollars, but they are now suing the Trump administration. Why? Because the Trump administration held the funds because of their treatment of Jewish students, not allowing them to go to class unfettered, unmolested, unattacked. And Harvard was supposed to step in and stop anti-Semitism. And due to the alleged acts that have been happening on campus and Harvard's attitudes towards that, the Trump administration said you don't qualify for federal funding. Well, now they're suing. Harvard President Alan Garber says the consequences of the government's overreach will be severe and long-lasting. This isn't their overreach. If you want to be your own private university with your billions of dollars in endowments, you go be your own university. But if you want federal funds, you got to follow the law. And the law is to not allow any students to be discriminated against or to feel attacked or have their education altered. Well, Harvard University doesn't like that. They filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration over its unlawful multi-billion-dollar freeze of research funding to the university. Harvard President Alan Garber said moments ago we filed a lawsuit to halt the funding freeze because it is unlawful and beyond the government's authority. I think if the government's giving you money, they have full authority. Now, the Trump administration has planned to cut another $1 billion in federal grants and contracts to the university, according to Wall Street Journal, in addition to the current $2.2 billion freeze that was announced last week. And why are we giving Harvard billions of dollars? We have homeless veterans on the streets in our country, but we're giving billions of dollars to Harvard. Listen, I'm not anti-Harvard. I understand they have been an Ivy League academic institution. We have gotten research. We have graduated, some very fine people. But as a taxpayer, can my money go to the homeless instead? Can it go to, opening up clinics for these kids that need access to medical care? These billions of dollars, really, to Harvard? So the White House told Fox News that Harvard's gravy train of federal assistance is coming to an end. They said, the statement, the gravy train of federal assistance to institutions like Harvard, which enrich their grossly overpaid bureaucrats with tax dollars from struggling American families, is coming to an end. Taxpayer funds are a privilege, and Harvard fails to meet the basic conditions required to access that privilege. In the 51-page complaint obtained by Fox News Digital, Harvard accused the Trump administration of unlawfully freezing billions on research funding to pressure the university into restructuring its governance, academic programs, and hiring practices. So they're also mad about DEI. They say the trade-off put to Harvard and other universities is clear: allow the government to micromanage your academic institution or jeopardize the institution's ability to pursue medical breakthroughs, scientific discoveries, and innovative solutions. Okay, I'm not buying that, people. Okay, you're saying the government will not micromanage if you say, I don't need your money. And I'm not convinced that Harvard really needs the government's money. They have millions, if not billions of dollars coming in. Their tuition is ridiculously expensive. Now, was it Harvard or was one of these Ivy Leagues going to do free tuition? I mean, if they're using government money for free tuition, can you ask the taxpayers first if that's really what they want? I would rather the money go to a child to pay for their cancer treatment than a high school student who really wants to go to Harvard. I think there's just better ways to spend this kind of money. Now, their complaint continued, saying the university will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. Nobody is telling you, that you have to take the government money. But what they're saying is you better follow the law and protect every student, including your Jewish students, if you're even going to think about taking taxpayer money. They say no government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they could admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they could pursue. Well, then tell the government you don't want their money. But they want the money. The complaint argues that the freeze violates the First Amendment by imposing viewpoint-based conditions on Harvard's funding. So, again, this is going to go back to, and it's probably going to end up back at the Supreme Court as it pertains to DEI. If you give somebody preference based on their race or color, is that against the Constitution? Well, constitutional rights, you are not supposed to pick and choose based on somebody's color or creed. This is what we fought for with civil rights back in the 60s to stop, people being passed over because of the color of their skin or their religion. But then it started to go opposite. No men shall apply for this. If you're a white male, you do not get to apply for this scholarship. We're looking for a woman. We're looking for, so if we are going to be following the Constitution, then a job has to be open to each and every person. And so they're bringing up DEI as a result of this. And, maybe we are giving money. If, Harvard is a private institution, then they don't need federal funds. They're private. But these schools have been getting funds. Remember, there was a list of what these schools were getting during COVID, the COVID pandemic relief. They got millions. Now, I understand they lost money because their governor or whomever shut them down. But, they're getting a lot of money. And I don't think it should be on the taxpayer. As a taxpayer, I want to pay for public schools, and I want good curriculum, and I want our kids being able to compete with other countries in terms of their academics. I have no problem with our tax dollars going to the public school system as long as the public school system is teaching the kids correctly and teaching the kids how to be, some of the best students, in the world. But I don't need to pay for colleges. I paid for my own college. I worked multiple part-time jobs. Thank God I had an academic scholarship for my local in-state school, UNLV. But I couldn't even think of affording to go to Harvard or Stanford or any of these. But they're going to be using money to offer free tuition. And they're offering, listen, the taxpayers deserve a little bit more say into where the money's going. So, from what we have been seeing that's been happening on campuses, it's absolutely disgusting that a Jewish student has to fear for their life, fear for their ability to learn. And some of these campuses even told Jewish students to just stay home and learn remotely. We can't guarantee your safety. Well, then close the flip down. If you can't guarantee anybody's safety, then you close down until you can. And refund their money. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.